We've been working with GitHub now for a few weeks. And GitHub is pretty easy to work with at the very beginning. It becomes more and more complicated when you start using more and more advanced features. Still, as a new developer, there are a lot of things you can do with GitHub that without getting into very complicated stuff. One thing that can help you with that is using the web interface, and that's what we have been doing. But another one is to use GitHub Desktop. It's a free application you can download and install on your Windows and Mac machine. And what it does is it allows you to download the files that you've been posting on GitHub to your local machine and synchronize the two. Any changes you make to your local set of files can be uploaded using GitHub Desktop to the website, and any changes you make on the website can be downloaded to GitHub Desktop. So this allows you to work with things from your local machine. And that is important if you have a lot of developers working on a single project. So you can all have different copies of the repository. And then you can all be working on your local copy. And then when you're done with making changes, adding new files, updating files, etc., you can update it to the website. And then once you do that, when everybody updates things, everything gets updated and merged together. So the changes get merged into one main change and you go forward. There's a lot to learn about GitHub. But this week, I want to just kind of introduce GitHub Desktop as an alternative way of using GitHub besides just using the website. Now, you can download it for free. Just go desktopgithub.com. It's a very simple and quick download. You download it, you start up the install, you press the button, it walks you through it. Once it's installed, you'll need to log into GitHub. So you have to know your name and password, your login and password on GitHub to be able to do this. When you first start up with file, when you first start up the application, it will ask you to log in. Now the user interface changes all the time, and I know for a fact that the user interface recently changed, so it looks a little bit different than this, but it still works the same way. You have to log in. Now, let's say that you haven't logged in, you open it up, you're still not logged in. You can always go File, Options, and there will be an option to sign in. So the screen when you first start off looks different. It's darker, and it takes you over there. But you can always come back and log in, sign out, and log in, so you can switch between different servers and different accounts, etc. Now, once you do so, you'll be given a set of options. Probably the option that you want most often is to clone a repository from the internet. You could also make a new repository on your hard drive and then later upload it to the internet. But if you choose the clone to repository, this second one here, you'll get a list of all the repositories that are associated with your account. Clicking one of those will allow you to download the repositories, the files inside the repository to a folder in your hard drive. It will default to a particular location, and usually the default's just fine, but you certainly could choose another one. This is known as a cloning process, where you're cloning it down. You're making a copy of it. You're making a clone of the repository. Now, once that's downloaded, you've got a copy of it on your hard drive. So if you go and you look at the location of that folder, you'll find that the files are literally there. You typically will see a screen that will gives you an option here to view the files in the repository. Again, they change this every so often. They modernize it. At that point, you can just go ahead and click on the Show and Explore, or in Finder on your Mac. But you can also just go looking for the folder as long as you memorized where you put it, the local path was. At that point, you can just kind of play around with it. For a good example that you're going to see, a number of people talk about this, where you just go through and you make a change to a file. Maybe you add a new file, or maybe you just change the content of the file. When you do so, coming back over to GitHub Desktop, you'll be able to see what the old information was versus the new. So if I had originally in that text file xfd xfgdszx, some wild string, random string of characters. If that was the original content, and then I open a file and I add new content to it, when I stop it and I save it, it will show in GitHub Desktop the old and the new. And at that point, I can then go ahead and upload my changes. Now, if I fetch the original, what will happen is that it will override my changes. So I want to be careful about that. And if I fetch it down from the website, I want to be careful about it. Also, you can have multiple branches. A branch is another way of copying the current values. There's a main branch always in each repository. It used to be called the master branch, and you'll see that referred to in a number of pictures and in documentation. But this year, this is 2022, maybe even a little bit earlier, they changed it over to main instead of master, which makes some sense there. So if you see main, master, same thing. So if you upload your changes to the main folder, you can do that. You can just go ahead and you can make an upload, and you do so by committing the change. So you press on the button that allows you to commit the change to the main or master in the older pics. And then you click on the push origin button. You'll see something like this. And then once that's done, if you go out to the website, you'll see that the change indeed is there. Now, there's a lot to learn about this, but we're not really going to use it in our homework. I just want you to know about it. So I've given you another video to watch out there made by somebody else. I think they do a nicer job. And we're going to learn about GitHub Desktop just a little bit. We're not going to dive into it deeply. But if you want to learn more, there's certainly lots of information out there, including GitHub help.github.com English desktop, and you'll find all kinds of useful information about how it works and how you can use it. Next week, we'll look at another way of working with it, which is from the command prompt, a console application. So there's a windowed application, that's what we're looking at here, a web application, that's what we've been using, and a console application, from the terminal window. And that's the next thing we want to look at. But for now, we are done with this module, except for, of course, the whole thing of doing your homework assignment. Remember that in this particular module, we're trying to figure out how to answer these questions. What's the difference between a class and the objects made from a class? What are the components that make up a standard pattern of a class? The fields, the attributes, the properties. What is the purpose of a class's constructor? What is a self keyword? What is the keyword static method? How are fields, attributes, and properties functions related? What's the difference between a property and a method? Why should you include a docstring in a class? What's the difference between get and GitHub? And what is GitHub Desktop? The goal this week is to try to answer all those questions. When you can answer all those questions, you've learned the core stuff that we're trying to learn this week in the module, and you can move on to the next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.